let's talk about a few things that we need to know in billing. So let me go back to the first job that we turned in the turn-in screen here, 12216, enter, enter. Let's go into this invoice. I'm going to right-click and view it. First of all, you see that in the invoice message box, there's some default messages keep popping up here. Where is it coming from? Well, it's coming from your default invoice message that you set up under your setup screen. Under setup, if you go to invoice messages, and I'm going to search for all the messages I have a holiday messages. Come December 1, I'm going to switch my default to this one. So you switch that. Every invoice you generate starting December 1 will have this message automatically pop up. And then after holidays over, come January 7th, I'm going to switch my default message back to our standard one. So that's where it's coming from. Young, can I actually change that? I need to add more notes here. Once the default come in, you can change any part of it or add additional notes on top of it. Now you cannot add two messages into one, but you can bring one in and then add some custom message on top of that. The second thing is there are things called invoice headers. Let's go take a look at an example of that. When I preview this one, what RB8 does is that when it puts together an invoice, it generates this line here that says one certified copy of transcript of colon. And then right underneath, there's a witness name. That line is called invoice header, and RB8 automatically generates them based on your input. So if it's an original, it'll say original. If it's an ON1, it'll say ON1. Sometimes, though, that header might not work for you because it could be taken but not transcribed, the position of, or it could be examination under oath of. So you like to have something different than what RB8 creates. Where you do that is here in this quadrant number 3, double click into whatever order you want. And there's a box that says invoice header. Now you can look up all the ones that you created yourself. For example, I have one here, examination. So you can bring that in. Just like a message, you can have a set of invoice headers created in advance that every possible combination of things you guys do. Or if just a one-time deal, you know what, I don't think we'll ever use this header again. I don't want to put it into our permanent header file. You can just type it, whatever you want. So you can say, type your own header. Remember, this one will not be saved so that you can use this again next time. One-time deal. Another thing is, I know most of you are using post office, UPS online or FedEx online or DHL, so you guys track all that stuff there. But if you wanted to designate that you ship something to a client, like a hand delivery or courier, you can use the RB8 feature here. So for example, remember that David Stratford, we had to use a courier because he was waiting at the hotel room? I just did a quick label from RB8 and then I delivered it to him. Well, I'm going to go double click into that order. I'm going to go to shipping tab. I'm going to use the courier. Today, we have a service called Rocket Service here in Texas. Tracking number, blah, 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 blah. And that'll actually tell me later on if somebody asks me, what happened to David Stratford package? And I can go in and say this here. You can also change the status to shipped here. A lot of you ask, Young, job status says turned in and next thing says billed. But you know what? In between, in our firm, we need to know whether it's shipped or not. Shipped status. If you guys use it like that you need to know turned in and shipped and billed or billed and shipped. You want to change the job status to shipped, click this button and say by UPS and 4 packs. And you can say done. Now if you look at the job status in here next to the job number, see job status will be now shipped. If I go to status log, it's going to say this job was shipped. So if a calendar person get a call from a client complaining, where's my transcript? That calendar person can go into the job. Never mind the turn-in billing section. You know, her department is the calendar. She can go to a job, pull up a witness or case name, and look at the status log. Sir, we just shipped it today. Another thing you need to know is that, when reporters late, every single day they are late after 10 business days, we charge them a penalty of 5 cents a page. Where do we put that in there? I know we paying the reporter for this amount, but I need to deduct something. Or sometimes you want to pay some other resource like scopist or transcriber or proofreader. All those are called additional pay. And there's a tab that says additional pay. Now this is where from the entire job, not from each invoice, but entire job, I'm going to take away 5 cents for 125 pages. So you go new, the resource will be Lisa, and I'm going to go to other, I'm going to do chargeback, and I'm going to do 125 pages at minus 5 cents. That'll take away $6.25 from the reporter's pay, and reporter will know why we did that. You can also do additional pay if there are scopists involved. Even though as an independent contractor, reporter is supposed to hire scopist and she needs to take care of all the paying and all that. But some office, as a convenience or to help the reporters, hire scopist and you help the reporter and then you deduct it from the reporter, but you pay the scopist. You can also pay all the scopists involved in this particular job using this particular screen. So whether you're taking away or giving additional rates to the reporter herself or other people that are involved in this job, you can use this additional pay screen. Let's talk about COD invoices. Now this happens to be a COD. Let's go preview this one. First of all, you see that it does not have a draft going across the invoice because COD, we have to send it out before we can post them. How you know it's a COD is by looking at the invoice number, you'll actually see there is a 3 asterisks right after the invoice number. That doesn't mean that this client is a 3-star client, it means that he's a COD. So it's a COD invoice, it cannot be posted. What that means is that you can print it, you can email it, you can send it out. But this invoice will not be posted, which means that it will not be your revenue. It will not go on your sales register of today. All COD invoices will end up in an area called COD invoices. They stay there until payment shows up for them. So the idea is you generate an invoice, mark it COD in lieu of your COD letter. Because a lot of clients will say, we can't generate a check from a letter. We need an actual invoice. That's the reason I'm actually generating an invoice, but not posting it, send it out, and they end up in here. So in your billing, your invoice end up in a COD invoices. So if I go search, and that's all my COD invoices will be there. When a check shows up, you come here and you look for it. You go into the invoice, you uncheck the COD mark, you un-COD it, and then once it becomes on COD, I can post it right here. Now the accounts receivable accounting department can go ahead and apply that check to that invoice. That invoice will show up on today's sales register as a today's income, not on the day that was billed 3 months ago. Do I need to clean up this area once in a while? No, we have a plenty of room, so let it sit there. They might send you a check after 30 years. Now I know some accountants wants to go, you know what? I don't want to see all these invoices. Every 6 months, I want to clean them up. You can do that by simply picking a date range, then you can just go ahead and delete them. Let's also talk about voiding and rebilling. You know what? I made a mistake. But there are 2 kinds of mistakes. First kind is that I bill the wrong party. Attorney never tell you to bill insurance company or third party at the front. They always tell you when you send them an invoice, 2 months later they go, oh, by the way, you're supposed to send this to Liberty Mutual Insurance Company. If that was the error, then we do not need to rebill. We simply can transfer invoice to another party. So let's go back here. Let's look at this one here. Invoice number 7172. Let's say I sent this invoice email to Daniel Berg, and 2 months later, when I calling him, how come you guys are not paying your bill? That's when they tell me that I'm supposed to send it to whatever. Now everything else is right. The invoice amount, everything's okay, except I just send it to the wrong client. So what you want to do on that case is that you go to a function called transfer invoice, and you say invoice number 7172, enter again. And you're sold to, which is the attorney who got the product, which is correct. The bill to is the attorney who got the invoice. It's wrong. So you go, you know what, I need to change this. So you go look up, and I don't know the adjuster's name, but I know the firm, so I look up by firm, and I go, show me all the insurance company. So let's say Geico Insurance, and then search all the contacts, and then there's only one adjuster. Okay, so John Shack is the guy that I need. So I transfer the invoice, I save that. And then I can right click on here, and then I can reprint posted invoice right from here. So let's go preview that. And when you go reprint posted invoices, there are two options. You can either print out the current invoice in case they made a partial payment, or you gave some credit, or there has been some finance charges or late charge accumulated, then I might generate a current. But this instance, they need to have original invoice. Now the invoice is changed because bill to is a John Shack of Geico Insurance ordered by Daniel Berg of Bergstein & Chapman. So he switched it. What if I made a real mistake in that I chose the wrong rate table? I didn't know they were preferred group, or they had a special insurance case rate, or I forgot to bill something or overcharge the client. Whatever it is, the amount is wrong. And when amount is wrong, client usually will say, we want the new invoice because we have to forward it to our client. We cannot have this credit memo stuff. So I need to rebill it. So let's say this invoice 7172 needs to be rebilled. So you need to go ahead and void it first, because remember, once invoice is posted, it's like cast in stone. Nobody can change anything, not even us, which is a good thing. So which means that accounting person has to come in and void the invoice first. Let me quickly go there. So accounting person will go to receivable transactions, other transactions, and she'll right click new. I like to void an invoice, and she will enter 7172, enter, make sure it's the right one, and 66375, that's the wrong amount. And the reason we're avoiding is the used wrong rate table. And who authorized it? A boss. She authorized to void it. I go save and close. So even though I post all my transactions, payments, everything I do in accounting department once a day, I need to finalize this transaction right now. So I go post this right now because billing person needs to rebuild this. Are you done? Yes. So as an accounting person, I simply void it and post it at one transaction. And then tell the billing person, okay, Susan, now you can go ahead and rebuild that job. Now, how do we rebuild it? Do we re-enter all that stuff? No, definitely not. We simply go ahead and copy what we did before and just change the rate table. So where do we do it? Well, we simply go back to turn in. So let's say we go to turn in, we bring up the same job number, we go in there, and then there is my invoice. The invoice, once they get voided, they turn red. And if you look at the scroll to the right, you'll see there's a void date. This invoice is voided. Okay, so I know as a billing person, accounting person just did that. Now, how do I rebill it? By copying it. So you see that copy button here? You can just right click and say copy. Now, this will simply copy everything you have done on the previous billing and create a brand new invoice, brand new order, and all the same one. So what did I screw up? Boss tells me that reporter screwed up so much that we had to give some discount. The client was furious because laptop didn't work and he didn't get the rough draft, and he flat refused to pay $150 per diem. So you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to override what we normally charge client, and we're going to say we're only going to charge you $50 for it. And then reporter will be penalized for her mistake. So that's all I did. Everything else remained the same. I recalculate the invoices. Then I'm going to go to billing screen, and there is my new invoice there. So this per diem went from $150 to $50. So that's how you will rebill, by copying avoided invoices. It's very simple, very quick. And we also have a audit trail of that invoice was voided and rebilled and things like that. So this is the best way to do that.